Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. The subject of the discourse today is Indriya, controlling faculties. That is, those faculties which control our conduct here and now, and thereby our destiny here and now and hereafter. So the role of the Indriya is very, very decisive and very important indeed. And if we understand clearly how we could cultivate the Indriyas, develop them and use them in the right way, then we can be the captain of our own destinies in this very life and in future lives. So it is important for a spiritual practitioner to understand what these faculties are. Now, last time there are 22 of them. We are endowed with these faculties both at the level of the body and the mind. And there are 22 of them, and it is important that we understand them. So we have already discussed about 9 faculties in the last discourse, and we will discuss today on feelings as faculties. A faculty is an original power. It determines our conduct here and now, how we behave, how we act, and so on. And therefore it is important that we understand them. Imagine, as I mentioned last time, I will recapitulate a little. We mentioned that imagine a blind person, how his life becomes handicapped. Just because he is deprived of the ability to see, he is sightless. Now these faculties are at the bodily level. We have eye, ear, nose, tongue and body. These 5 sense organs or the sense faculties, they are also known as sense bases. So these faculties they determine very much how we live, how we conduct ourselves, etc. So if we have sufficient understanding about these faculties, and then the 6th one is the mind as a faculty, as the original source of power. There is nothing that one cannot achieve in this world if one understands the power inherent in the mind. All that one can gather and develop in the form of knowledge, wisdom, virtue, power, anything, all accomplishments of life, they originate in the mind. Therefore, mind as a faculty is a very, very decisive one, and one has to understand how these faculties work. Now, I mentioned about a blind person. How a person is totally handicapped. Of course, there are modern means of alleviating the handicaps of these blind people. There is the Braille language, and all kinds of other facilities have been created, undoubtedly. But the fact remains that being blind, the person is deprived of so many things which otherwise a sighted person enjoys. So the eye faculty is a very great karmic endowment with which we are born. Now, how feeling arises, let us say in this particular I faculty, and how it determines our future, and in this life and in the future, that will be the subject of our discussion today. Now, feelings arise when let us say the eye as a sense organ meets its counterpart, the visible object. When these two come in contact, then mind adverts towards the object automatically, because the consciousness based in the eye faculty, immediately it gets alerted, and so it adverts, that is, it attends, you see, it focuses its attention towards the object. So there is the triple meeting of the mind, the eye faculty, eye organ or faculty, or the sensitivity in the eye organ, and the visible object. When these three meet, that is called the contact. It's a technical term. It's like a tripod. All the three must meet together. You see, if one leg goes, then the whole thing collapses. So only when these three meet together and are stabilized in this meeting, that you see, feeling arises with such contact. When all the three combine, they arise and they are stabilized. It is then that the feeling arises. So you have 6 distinct type of feelings. Feeling arising with eye contact, on ear contact, nose contact, tongue contact, body contact, and mind contact. So the contact points, that is the area where feelings arise. Now, feelings are 5 as faculties. The pleasant feeling, the unpleasant or painful feeling, pleasant bodily feeling or pleasant mental feeling, unpleasant or painful bodily feeling or mental feeling, and the neutral or the neither painful nor pleasant. These 5 types of or kinds of feelings are known as the Indriyas, that is, the controlling faculties. Once the feelings arise, any feeling for instance, what happens? Once we understand how the feelings work, then we can have a handle on the feelings. The feeling does not arise just as a discrete phenomena, no. It's a flow of a stream of feelings that keep bursting up and vanishing like a bubble. It arises and vanishes, arises, vanishes in a stream. Now you are looking at it, let us say on a flower, on a rose flower, you look at it and it gives you a pleasant sensation, a pleasant feeling. You are happy, you feel happy, joyous. The moment you turn away from the rose, the feelings which were created by, you see, while focusing on the rose, all those feelings also vanish. So feelings arise, vanish, dependent on how, you see, your attention or advertence or your apprehension of the object, how long it continues. When the mind adverts, then it begins to apprehend the nature of the object. That is, it recognizes and knows the object as it is such and such. And then the feeling arises. If you like the object, the feeling, pleasant feeling will arise. If you do not, then the unpleasant feeling will arise. Or if you don't mind any, then it will be the neutral feeling. So when these feelings arise in streams in streams, and they are so changeful that quickly they arise, quickly they vanish. So now, this is not normally understood by average people. They think it's something discrete phenomena that they feel, and that it is something permanent, it's stable, and all that sort of thing. No. They are quick, very quick moving, arising, vanishing, that kind of experience. So, and in streams. The moment you change your sight to some other object, then the feelings which arose based upon the previous one, that also completely stops, it ceases. So that changing from moment to moment and from object to object, and the way we apprehend the object, see and recognize the object, and so on. Now this is how feelings originate in contact. Contact in this case, I give the example of I, my visible object, and the mind. All the three coming together, meeting together, forming the base for feelings to arise. Now these feelings for normal people, average people, what they think, when they see a nice object and they have a pleasant feeling, they say, oh, I am fine, I like this. And once you like that object, then the next is you desire that object. You have to have it. You recognize first of all, yes, this is very pleasant feeling, and this is something worth enjoying, and so on. That kind of thinking process sets in, because the feeling leads to a thinking process. And unless this thinking process is under control, that is, you are mindful about this thinking, then this thinking can lead you straight away to craving for the object that you desire. And once you begin to crave what you desire, then the next course is there will be a proliferation of thinking on how to get what you desire, how to enjoy what you crave, all this. And then when the craving sets in this way and proliferation, one thing leads to the other, another thing leads to the other, this process. Once it sets in, there is very little control that you can have unless you have trained your mind in such a way that you have control over your craving, over your desire, or over your lust or sensual feeling. So this ability to control over desires, etc., that is crucial for spiritual life. If you cannot control and you let it happen, occur, the result is it grows into attachment. So when you become attached to a certain object, let's say between men and women, the attachment that they develop, this is how they develop. And once you are attached, is bound to trigger a process which is known as karma formation. You see, when you become attached, next is you cling to what you are attached. You cling to what you crave. You cling on to the thing that you are attached. You have attachment for. So once clinging comes and it triggers what is called bhava, upadana pachaya bhava. Based upon this attachment or clinging, there arises the karmic formation. That is a process of karmic involvement. Volitional activity has started working. This is the initial point. Kamma bhava, anubhavati bhava. That means the karmic process starts. You have now committed an act of, a volitional act which has a certain potency. Potency means a certain power, inherent power which you can't do anything about. Now it is like medicine, for instance. Medicines have certain potency, that is to say they are valid for a certain period. Say a medicine is valid, it has a time factor. So 1 year, up to that it will be quite effective, and if you take, it will immediately bring relief, etc. But after that it is defunct. It doesn't work. So a karma, a volitional action, has a potency which, that means a power of or a capacity to produce a certain result. And the result must be compatible with the action itself. Now, for instance, if a person loves that, that rose flower and he craves for it, he keeps on collecting rose everywhere from wherever he can get, and all that sort of thing. And he has committed this, he has got this attachment for rose. Then next is he will commit actions connected with the rose. Either he will go and pick up a rose from somebody else's garden, and the person says, "Hey, why are you doing this? Don't touch my flower." And he says, "Why not? I like it, so I'll have it." And that is how a quarrel starts, and some kind of argument and this and that, and then it leads to fight, fisticuff, they quarrel, they fight, and end up into violence. So this is how attachment can lead to violence. For simple things. So violence is a mental state, a destructive, a mind which seeks to destroy. That is violence. And it arises in the mind, and then it engulfs the whole world as it is happening now. Violence in the name of religion. Religion is supposed to be something which elevates the human mind and which brings about refinement of conduct, purity of conduct, purity of mind, purity of thinking. But now if the same religion which is supposed to bring about spiritual development and transformation, the same mind causes violence, intolerance. You name people, give all kinds of name and hate them because they don't follow your way. This kind of thing in the name of religion has caused so much violence throughout the history of mankind. Now, this is the irony. So now, once you have committed an act of violence, the result thereof will also be something connected with violence. You will be born in a plane of existence where violence is rife everywhere. Now, if you are born in Middle East today, I'm not aiming at anybody. But you see, if you are born, let us say in Iraq or Afghanistan or Pakistan or some such place, my goodness, you are surrounded by violence all the time. And you will not have any peace. And when you don't have any peace in you, you also don't allow others to enjoy peace. That's the problem. It's something like a smoker who not only smokes and destroys his own health, but he is not content until he involves somebody else also to smoking or drinking and all that sort of thing. So now, this is how these proliferates the actions, and the correlation between action and its result, they are compatible. So you are born in such a situation. So you have created your destiny by your conduct. That is, to begin with, by committing a karma, an action, a volitional action, an intentional action to to commit violent act, violence in speech, violence in action, and etc. So now, if a person trains the mind and says, no, I renounce violence in any form, I will not practice, I will not kill any creature, abuse or fight or beat, and commit any kind of violent action. And the person has, very systematically, methodically trained the mind not to be violent, then this thing would not have happened. Whenever there is a rose, in the first place you don't go and pick up somebody else's nose. That means stealing. So that which is not yours, you take it, that is stealing. So this will not happen when you say, no, I will not do that. Yes, I like rose, but I will buy it, or I won't have it, never mind. So he has to give up his attachment for rose. I am just giving an example, that's all. So, if the training, if you undertake Shila, Pancha Shila, whereby you renounce, you abstain from the act, any act of killing or violence, any act of stealing or robbing or corruption, any act of sexual immorality, sexual misconduct, any act of lying or falsehood, or any act of, let's say, indulging in alcoholic drinks or things like that, that that has immediate effect on the mind. One loses control over the mind by developing that kind of habit, and then you become a slave of your addiction. Addiction leads to all kinds of other complications in life. So now, by training the mind in this way, in a positive way, through moral conduct and also through meditation, regular practice of meditation, one can have a handle on this tendency to be violent or to steal or to be corrupt, and all these things one can have a handle on all those. So here everything starts with feeling. There is feeling that gave rise to, because it's at the level of, at the level of feeling you have not tackled feeling, or at the very beginning of feeling. If you are a meditator and you are training the mind on the basis of meditation on feelings or contemplation on feelings, you develop mindfulness on every feeling that arises at any contact point, whether eye or ear or nose or tongue or body or mind. An idea arises in your mind, and if you are mindful about it, then you can have control. And if the feeling that arises with the arising of an idea in the mind as a faculty, and the mental object is an idea or a concept. or any doctrine or anything, any mental object. Now that arises, and with the arising of a mental object of that kind, you begin to think. And thinking triggers, a process where you either like the idea, dislike the idea, all kinds of things can arise. And it starts with feeling. As soon as the mind and the mental object meets, and that's the contact point, and then feeling arises there. With the feeling, if you like that particular thinking, or if you dislike it, if you are attracted by it or repelled by it, there will be a reaction. So the feeling creates a reaction. A chain of associated thinking will flow, you see, and thereafter it will lead you to either, desiring, craving and all what I have briefly described now. So this thing happens. Now if a person is meditating on feeling, and he starts from the very initial stage, he observes, for instance, every feeling that arises at any of the contact points, the five bodily faculties or mind, and you observe all the time any feeling that arises, whether it's a pleasant feeling, and if so, whether you are attracted by it, you want to enjoy it, or you just become, you are aware of that is a pleasant feeling, then you train your mind straight away based upon this mindfulness. You say, oh, it's only a pleasant feeling. You don't associate or assume any I. You don't say, I am fine, I am this, I am the feeling here. You identify yourself or your ego with this feeling. That is how it happens all the time. So the average people, when they have something nice feeling, they don't see it as a feeling. They call it, oh, I am fine, it's my feeling. I feel this way. So he assumes that there is an element called I. What is that I? For the average person, no. He has assumed that there is a permanent element somewhere, hiding somewhere in the mind, or he calls it a soul or anything, by some term. So he assumes, you see, something existing, whereas it is not. It's an adventitious element. What actually exists is the feeling. So if you say, I feel, you assume this I, and you have created a concept of I. So I-ness, myness, ultimately, you see, simply it means a concept. I is a concept. My is a concept, my property. I am this. I like this. I hate this. All these are mental concepts created by mind. They are constructed by mind. And they involve the mind in a way as to create all the, misfortunes that human beings are capable of creating for themselves. Misfortunes are not created by any extra, by any supernatural being or anything like that. Destiny is not created by any supernatural element. It is created by one's own conduct, one's own action. And the action springs from this. The source is the feeling. So if you are mindful about your feeling, and as soon as you say, oh, I feel this way, you say, hey, what's that I? You question yourself. And you say, what is this I? From where has it come? I am assuming it to be a permanent element. Instead, let me experience just the experience of feeling itself. So you desist from saying, I feel so. You say, oh, it is a pleasant feeling. The moment you have trained the mind in thinking in that way, thereafter you can be absolutely certain that this assumption of I and many other concepts that can be weakened day after day by sheer training. And a time will come when you can be very impersonal in all your dealings with yourself and with the world. Very impersonal way of looking at things, impersonal way of behaving. All this will occur because you have touched the very heart of reality, truth. The truth is what? Truth is plain feeling here. The question of I feel does not arise. It's an assumed thing. So once you understand that you see, stick to the ultimate reality of a thing, then what will happen is you can never, get distracted into a fault or some misconception and then get lost in the jungle of concepts. No. So this is how once one begins to train by tracing the beginning of things, that is the feeling, and keep a watch, observe every feeling. You are eating, all right? You like your food, very good, eat. Don't say, I like my food, or I like this particular item, or it is my creation. Now these ideas are superimposed on a certain experience, and the experience is feeling. So if you can separate all those which are superimposed, and you just stick to the actual experience of feeling, the result is the mind is filled with insight into reality. That is where knowledge becomes wisdom. Knowledge is not wisdom. Knowledge has to be evolved into wisdom. And that can be done in this way, by sticking to reality. Go to the heart of the matter. Don't beat about the bush here and there with all kinds of ideas and concepts. Just stick to the point. In this case, the feeling, the pleasant feeling is the faculty, is the controlling faculty. It controls your action. It controls your thought to begin with. Thought is mental action. And if the action is intentionally committed, that is bound, it has a potency of its own, therefore it is bound to produce a result which will be compatible with this particular volitional action. It is as plain and simple as that. So some people, they say, yes, there is karma and there is also the result of karma, we accept. But you see, the result is given by some god or some supernormal element and all that. No. That is a misconception. That is a concept which has been turned into an ideology. And when ideology is controlled, then wisdom vanishes. Ideology is created by a person in his own mind. It's a construct, mental construct. So once we learned or to train the mind to separate the reality from concept, then there is no problem. So when you stick to reality of feeling, then you will see your mind becomes very calm. And you become more and more mindful in watching the feeling as it is. Just watching the feeling. You will be surprised to see how like a bubble it bursts It arises, vanishes, arises, vanishes, arises, vanishes. It keeps on going. So as soon as you notice with a very mindful mind, very attentive mind, once you do that, the mind gets more and more concentrated on that. And with greater concentration and mindfulness, the mind becomes calm. It's automatic. As soon as you develop mindfulness and you are able to develop mind, grow further into concentration and then into calmness. So mindfulness, concentration, calmness, this is an automatic process. Once you are focused fully on the thing, this will happen. This is called samatha or calming down meditation. Once this calming down meditation is practiced all the time, mind is very calm, very tranquil, and therefore very steadfast and stable. You can observe fully and clearly every feeling that arises. It's like, a scientist or somebody, a researcher. He has a sample and he puts it under a microscope, and then he sees all kinds of germs and microorganisms and virus and all that sort of thing. But with your naked eye, you don't see all that. It's only under microscope that it happens, that you can see. So once you create a mental microscope in the form of insight knowledge, insight hyphen knowledge, that means a knowledge based upon an insight into the reality of things. And insight means a direct vision of reality. Flashes of vision arises in the mind based upon this meditational experience of insight knowledge. So once with this insight knowledge is cultivated, developed, that is intuitive wisdom. And it is this wisdom which penetrates into the reality of an object. So here, as you keep on training the mind and developing the mind becomes sufficiently calm and tranquil. There appears the vipassana insight or knowledge, vipassana panya. So this insight knowledge penetrates into the reality and frees the mind from any involvement, from misconception, from concept, from unreality, from anything adventitious unconnected with the reality. Once that happens, the mind then becomes what is called freed through panya. Cheto vimutti, panya vimutti. The mind is liberated with the advent of intuitive wisdom. This is how, just by cultivating mindfulness based on every feeling that arises. What is true of pleasant feeling is true of other feelings too. But today we leave it at this, and we'll pick up the thread in the next discourse. The same trend. It's a series on Indriya, that is controlling faculties. And in this case what I have discussed is feeling as a controlling faculty. It controls our action, therefore controls our conduct, and therefore controls our destiny here and now and hereafter in future lives. With this I conclude. May the grace of Bhagavan Buddha surround your life with wisdom and well-being. May you all be happy. Sukhino bhavantu.